How's it going, folks? Rob here. I just thought I'd do a little bit of a clip about a bit of a harvest we're having over the last couple of weeks of mangoes. We've been harvesting quite a few of these little beauties. They don't look like your typical shop bought ones. There's a few little black blemishes on them and whatnot, but I can guarantee you they are just as tasty as anything you'd find in the shop. This variety here we think is a Bowen, or a Kensington Pride I think is another name for it. It was on the property when we purchased it, along with two other stringy types of mangoes. They were cut down and pretty much all the garden was put where those guys were. So this one we decided to keep. It's in the chicken pen here, and we did give it a bit of a prune back a couple of years ago, and the regrowth has been fantastic, and it's been giving us dozens and dozens of these beauties every year. So we have a couple of pests that like to hook into these guys. Now the biggest pain we have is the Queensland fruit fly. We've absolutely been smashed by these fellas this year. I actually just took a bit of vision of one walking around this fruit here. What they do is the female comes along, gets her ovipositor, punches the fruit, lays some maggots in there. The maggots develop and just basically smash through the fruit. Still edible, but you know, not many people like protein with their tropical fruit. These fruit flies, they've been a real pain in the butt this year. I've lost a whole heap of chilies to them, capsicums, even pumpkins for the first year ever. We lost some pumpkins out the front. I actually caught one of these little darlings depositing an egg in one. So definitely different to the other fruit flies a lot of people are familiar with, that buzz around in the kitchen, and you can use red wine vinegar traps for them, that sort of thing. These guys here are a little bit different to those. Typically you use a bait, lure and bait style trap with these guys, using pheromones and protein baits and things like that. So definitely different to the little fruit gnats you see flying around your kitchen. We have a couple of animals that also like to hoe through these guys. Flying foxes, actually a fruit bat. A couple of quite large colonies around us here. They come in at night time and they fully hook into these guys, make quite a racket, and they eat quite a bit of fruit. We also have possums. We get both the little red possums or brown possums and also the brush-tailed possums here. They come down and they have their fair share as well. And then once the skin's broken and you know they're hanging in the tree half eaten, we have the rainbow lorikeets come in and they have a bit of a feast on them as well. So we don't mind sharing with the animals. You know, even though they do eat their fair share, we end up with a couple of dozen this year. We've already taken probably around about 20 or so off, and hopefully today I'll get the rest of the decent ones off. So we'll have a quick look at the carnage, just the fruit that the animals have dropped, the possums and the flying foxes, and then I might set up the camera up on the back stairs and I'll harvest the rest of these guys. So this is what welcomed me this morning when I came down to check the chooks, or the chickens. I think there's 8 or 9 mangoes, some of them partially devoured, some of them just knocked off the tree, just sitting down here on the ground. You can see where our bats had a real good go at this one down here. That's what they pretty much will do. They have a bit of a feast and then fly off. If they knock the fruit off, they pretty much will just move on to another. So there's a couple down here on the ground that are like that. So that's pretty much what the bats leave us. And just in the chicken pen with Blackie and Chicken Little, wherever she is, there's a whole host of fruit from the last couple of days that's been knocked down. I'd say what's happening is the fruit's just starting to ripen up and the bats and the possums are fully getting into it. But unfortunately, once it drops on the ground, they pretty much will leave it alone. I need to get in there and pull a few of them out because they will invite rodents and that sort of thing into the chicken pen, and I don't want that. So a lot of these will probably end up as a layer in the compost heap. I've got some more bits and pieces I need to add. So what I'll be doing today is pretty much picking that mango there, and there's a couple of more up the top there if you can see them through the glare. I'm pretty much all going to be harvesting those guys today, and they'll be processed once they're ripe. We'll either eat them fresh or they'll go into the freezer. So this is the contraption I use to harvest the mangoes. I don't know what brand it is. All I know is it's a tree pruner. I picked it up off FreeCycle, off a deceased estate. FreeCycle is just a way you can recycle your goods without sending them to landfill. So it's basically got a handle down here that you pull to activate the cutting blade, which is up the end here. There's a bit of a hook. This hook goes over the top of the branch, and if my assistant pulls the handle, There we go, that just comes up and cuts off the fruit or the branch, or you know, whatever you're working on. Hopefully not fingers, hey Maya. So that's pretty much what I'll be using, just to pull the fruit off, and then the fruit will be landing in the shade cloth above us. Give it a bit of a safety net so it doesn't get a splat on the pavers. So we'll go set up the cameras and then we'll come down and start harvesting. So there you go folks, they're the mangoes I managed to get off today, and there are still a couple left up there. We'll just leave them for the flying foxes and the possums. I mean, you've got to feed the wildlife, that's just the way that I look at it. There's more than enough to go around. We've got a couple of kilos in the freezer. But anyway, we've got 13 in one tray and we've got 11 in another, so there's another 24 for us. Some of them are nice and ripe. This one here, he'll be ripe in a couple of days time. He's given already, he's sort of, the flesh is yielding a little bit when I press on it. Any that are nice and green, like this one here, there's pretty much, well, no chance the fruit fly have stung this. The flesh is just too hard. So these are the guys we ripen up and then we, you know, hook into as fresh fruit. So that's pretty much, well, how we manage it. And in fact, if I just bring this up to the camera slowly, you might be able to see that this fruit fly thinks that it's still alright to deposit an egg in this fruit. So I might just dispatch her very quickly if I can catch her. Hang on folks, and she's gone. Anyway, so that gives you a bit of an idea on how bad these bloomin' fruit fly are anyway. This fruit here is a prime example of one that's been blown. Definitely nice and ripe, nice, and the flesh is yielding nicely. You might be able to make out down in there's a bit of a dot and some sap-like substance oozing out, and then this is all appears to be bruised. That's pretty much, well, a clear sign that this has been stung by the Queensland fruit fly. So after these guys get processed, all the skins and the pips go straight into the worm farm, and they pretty much, well, yeah, smash through whatever's left in there. So nothing goes to waste here, and a lot of this stuff, as I mentioned before, will end up going into the compost, and hopefully the compost will be hot enough to kill off any grubs that are in the fruit. So there you go folks, there's a bit of a look at the last harvest, for us at least, of the mangoes this season. Definitely a very good season for us. You know, a couple of dozen mangoes for nothing, who can complain? I mean, the chickens fertilise it for us, the trees in their pen, all their manure, all the grass clippings we throw in there for the chickens to scratch through, other garden scraps and bits and pieces. Some of the filter water from the aquaponics runs down there and would also feed it as well. So yeah, definitely a very well looked after tree in that respect. Just the bloomin' fruit flies we're having issues with, and helicopters. So now he's passed. Other people we know of hasn't been that lucky with their mango setting fruit this season. I don't know whether it's because we had a couple of big storms early on and they tend to knock the small fruit and the blossoms off, or whether there's other factors involved. Maybe ours is just pampered with all the chicken manure and whatnot. My parents, about 10-15 minutes drive from here, they had a so-so year. Dad actually collects quite a fair amount of fruit from his tree. He doesn't lose much to the fruit fly or the flying foxes, and that's basically because he uses a sock that he's made up from his old overalls. Now he's retired, old torn overalls, all the legs and the arms have been taken off. He sewed little bags out of them with little ties at the top of them, and he puts them over each individual fruit. The fruit fly don't get to them, and neither do the flying foxes, they leave them alone. As for processing the mangoes, it's a pretty straightforward procedure, as I probably mentioned before. We just chop the flesh off, make sure there's no little creepy crawlies in there, put it in bags nice and flat, and then put it in the freezer. Just before we continue, Maya showed me this quick and easy method of removing the flesh from the mango cheeks once they've cut off from the fruit. She just pushes a thin-walled plastic cup between the flesh and the skin, and it takes off a nice large scallop of fruit. A lot less messy than the methods that I've been using, so I think I'll be using it from now on. And then whenever we want to take it out to make up 9 times out of 10 at sorbet, we basically just break off a chunk, chop it up a little bit smaller, put it in the food processor and make up our sorbet. Also too, the girls like to add it into milkshakes, and we have also made some frozen yogurts out of it as well. I haven't quite perfected that yet. They tend to come out a little bit grainy, but yeah, we do like it in a lot of cool desserts. So I do hope you've enjoyed the clip. Feel free to suss out some of the other playlists we have here on harvesting and processing food. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and once you subscribe you can tick a little box and you'll get an email every time we upload a video, and you can come along and suss out what we're doing in our small little backyard farm. Hope everyone is well and happy, and I will catch you next clip. Cheers folks. And look what I just found. Fish food. So go feed him to the fish and then I'll go set the cameras up. Not sure if these guys will go. The grasshopper that big. There he goes. I'm sure these girls get so sick of mangoes after a while. Good on you, Blackie.